Today, on What I Wish I Knew at 30, I'm joined by a woman whose story is as rich and layered as the dishes she's created. Chef Sarah Marrick, President Emeritus of the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs. From humble beginnings in the English countryside, Sarah began her culinary journey at just 15, training full-time while working weekends to make ends meet. Her grit and determination earned her the College Award for Excellence and a ticket to the world. By her early 20s, Sarah had already cooked for royalty, serving at Government House in Jersey for His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor, and guests including Princess Anne, Prince Charles, and Lady Diana. But it was her leap of faith to Australia in 1989 that changed everything. From Orpheus Island to the glittering kitchens of Crown Casino, Sarah forged a path in an industry dominated by men, becoming a sous chef among 60 male peers and leading one of the most demanding departments in the pre-opening of Crown. Her story isn't just about food, it's about courage, burnout, and the reality of breaking barriers before the term gender equity ever hit the mainstream. After years at the pass, Sarah rebuilt herself, taking her passion for food and people into education. Today, as a vet hospitality teacher at Copperfield College, she's inspiring the next generation of chefs with the same resilience and purpose that have defined her extraordinary career. Sarah's story is one of endurance, evolution, and empowerment, a reminder that success isn't just about what you achieve, but how you rise after the fire. Wow. I know that was a long introduction, but I think an essential one, Sarah. And I am so grateful that you've jumped into What I Wish I Knew at 30 today. And I know that you're going to have a lot of wise words and very hard-earned learnings to share with us. So, Sarah, welcome to What I Wish I Knew at
Thank you so
30.
much for having me, Fran.
You're very
It's an absolute
welcome.
pleasure to be here.
Fantastic.
I feel quite humbled actually to share the stage with so many prestigious people that have gone before me.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And we all have our own stories to tell. You know, that I think the beautiful thing about this forum and this platform is that you never actually know who needs to hear the lessons and, you know, the learnings that you've been through. And I think that is, you know, really the feedback that we're getting from this podcast is, you know, it's sort of, we are unique, but probably in our journeys, a lot of those things aren't particularly unique, but how we stand up to them and how we work through them. That's our story. So Sarah, welcome to What I Wish I Knew at 30. Did I miss anything out in that
Well,
introduction?
there is one small thing. I've just recently retired actually from my role at Copperfield College.
Fantastic. Well, there you are. So
Yes.
the internet isn't always up to date, is it?
No,
Brilliant. Well, happy retirement. And how is that going?
thank you. Beautifully, thank you. It's given me more time to work for the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs now.
So retirement, you use the word loosely.
Yes.
Of course. Sarah, and we're jumping in a time machine right now. You're 30 years old again. Where are you? What are you doing? And what's going through your mind at that stage of life?
I'm at Crown Casino. Actually, I was just about to transition into Crown Casino. I was at the RACV club in Little Bourke Street, a very esteemed members club,
Mm.
and I was operating the 15th floor. And at that time, I was working with a beautiful group of young apprentices, young women who are still my friends today. And we hold great affection and respect for each other. So that was a great thing in life to build those connections. And the club had that real vibe. You know, it was about connection and humanity, and the staff really had a close connection. And while I was there, one of the team members mentioned to me that Crown Casino was looking for somebody with the skill set I had. So I went for an interview. I worked at Crown Casino for about 2.5 years, I think. And it was an amazing opportunity for growth. I went into Crown College, did a lot of courses, a lot of personal growth. But like any organization with huge teams, you're dealing with a lot of different characters, different personalities. I had a lovely team of young people that I was working with. I started as chef de partie, I think, and then I transitioned up to sous chef within about 7 or 8 months. And then I began to see the challenges of running a large team. I'd worked with teams before, but not on that kind of scale. And also the challenges of dealing with so many managers above you. So I worked with Walter Wagner. He was
Okay.
an
Yeah, yeah.
absolute
I know
gentleman.
Walter. Yeah.
I still hold him in high esteem. Worked with Massimo De Luca, again, absolute gentleman. And I had a fun relationship with John Merson. We got on extremely well. His cheeky sense of humor and his character always brought lightness to my kitchen, especially when we were under pressure. He had a way of bursting the bubble when there was, tension in the room or we were all tired or exhausted. But there was also two other executive sous chefs who I won't mention names, but they had the ability to cause a little bit of angst within the team. And I don't know whether they realized they were doing it, but it was kind of like, I don't know, the only way I can describe it is mind games. So they would come in and change things. So you got a rhythm. You were plating up 1,000 entrees for a function that was going to go on upstairs. You were 20 minutes in. You'd plated up 150 plates, and now we need something to move from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Oh,
So
dear.
how do you deal with that? You've got
What
to
could
unpack the
possibly go
trolleys.
wrong?
Yes. So it was those kind of things that were causing angst. I had a chef de cuisine in the department. He'd become exhausted with these kind of things as well. And he'd, I think, reached burnout. And so he'd left. And I'd find myself in that role then with Fabrizio Restelli. So between us, we were sharing. He was in that role on my days off, and vice versa. He was on in the evening, or I was on in the morning, and we were both dealing with those challenges. And looking back, I think it was more about what was going on with them internally. They were young, they were
Mm,
keen, they wanted to progress, but I don't think at that point in their lives they got the life skills.
yeah.
So it almost at times felt a little bit cruel, but they probably didn't even in their own minds articulate that because they were growing themselves. So, it's just one of those things in life.
They
So
obviously
yes,
so they
sorry.
obviously wanted to be noticed, didn't they? But causing
Yes,
causing
yes.
chaos 20 minutes into service isn't the way to do it.
No, no. Well, we were plating up, they were going onto trolleys and then they were going up to a venue for distribution. Yes. So it was probably a 2-hour plate up process.
Wow.
Yes, it did cause chaos. And then, yes, so they were the kind of challenges I was facing that point in time, but it did help me to begin to get a bit more empathetic with my team. I probably didn't have enough empathy at that time because, again, I was only young, and that's something that I probably learn as a life lesson from that time, to make the time, to spend the time with your team members, even in a busy, rushed environment where you are doing 9,000
Mm,
meals a day. Still
mm.
need to find the time to connect and understand the people you're working with.
I think that's a really, really sage advice, because not everyone is the same and not everyone reacts the same. So I
Mm.
would imagine, in reality, in the kitchen, especially in these large commercial kitchens, you have so many different personalities, and a lot of chefs I've spoken to said initially they weren't given the training when they became. When they went up through the ranks, they weren't actually given the life skill training to deal with everything below them, and it's something that they did have to learn by trial and error.
Yes, you kind of learn about, you're right, you learn about what it is to be a leader, but you don't learn the emotional intelligence. You have to develop that over time. And I think, yeah, that's a skill that I certainly needed to learn at that time. And that it wasn't part of the training manual, I guess.
Curriculum, yeah. No, absolutely, because it's outcome driven, and that outcome is to get those 9,000 meals out of the kitchen. But,
Yes. Yes.
so looking back at that time, did you feel that you had life figured out at 30, or did you feel that you were winging it?
I was definitely winging it. Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely exhausted. My average day was somewhere between 12 and 16 hours. So I was just hanging on by my fingernails. I would literally go home. And obviously I was married to my beautiful husband who's in the other room there. Go home, literally collapse in bed, get up and go back to work and do it again. And I was doing that 6 days a week prior to the opening. And just coming home, kind of cobbling the house together, doing a bit of shopping and going back to work again. Well, there wasn't any life. We were
No.
making that. We were building our home. We were paying off our mortgage. It was that kind of time in life where you're frantically trying to make a future for yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at that, I mean, in the world, obviously, I mean, you've been teaching young chefs, and sort of how is that? Those 16-hour days, and I know, I mean, I remember Cran. A friend of mine was an HR manager there during that time when Cran was being set up, and I know that it was an incredibly high, it was a pressure pot. There was so much going on. There was so
Mm.
much, the whole of Australia was looking at Crown and what this was going to be, the first casino in Melbourne, and everything else that went around it. So,
It was so exciting.
yeah,
The adrenaline rush. I mean, that was what kept you going for the 16 hours.
yeah,
It was the rush of just getting through another day. That's what kept you going. But that had an end. You've got a use by date when you're burning that much energy every day.
yeah. And young chefs now, I mean, is the expectation that young chefs, will still do those kind of hours?
No, no. And they wouldn't. They
No,
wouldn't.
they
And why would
wouldn't.
they?
Yeah.
No,
It's a
no,
fair
no.
call.
I mean, unless they're working 2 jobs, but no, I don't think we live in that world anymore.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. And I had a conversation with my sister the other day, and she said, and I guess I was still a little bit in the old school. We did it, and she went, "Hang on a minute, don't you think kids are smarter these days? That actually we're not working the 12 to 16, that they prioritize what they want to, and they have a voice and are quite prepared to say, I'm not prepared to do that." So
Hmm.
so it was a good, I've been thinking about that in lots of different ways. But so going back to, when you were 30, Sarah, what was your biggest dream at that time? Did life take you where you expected?
Point in my life now where I hoped I would be. I'm very calm now. I'm very centered now. I'm very
Mhm.
comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah,
We're secure in our future. I think they're all the things that I was hoping for, and to a larger extent, I think I'm in the place that I hoped I would be at this point in my life. So yes,
fantastic. Did you expect to end up in Australia? Was that something that was on the cards, or was that something
no,
just happened? Tell me a bit about that.
no. All this takes me back to another question, which you're going to come to later. But at 14, I knew that the life where I was not where I needed to be. So we had this family friend who used to come and visit, drop into the farm about every year or so, and he'd talk about his adventures on the cruise ships and describe, the Caribbean and all these romantic destinations. And it sounded like an amazing life. So I went into hospitality training and came out of that about
Mm,
nearly 18. And then I went into full time work. And there wasn't much around us being in the country. So I applied to the cruise ships and got told that women were not allowed to work below decks from 3 different cruise companies. As you would imagine, we're talking the
wow.
80s here. Yes, you can't work below decks. So sorry, we can't hire you. So then I had to go, okay, what's plan B? So plan B was that I went and worked in the Channel Islands. Initially for a lady at a small hotel called Car Hotel on Sark. And then I
Okay.
transitioned from that job. I applied to Government House and worked at Government House for a year. The governor was an amazing man. And so it was His Excellency and Lady Pillar. he got me the visa to come to Australia. So he applied for the visa for me through a government house in London, and got me a 12-month working visa in Australia. So prior to that, I was also a little bit crazy and decided I was going to do a month in Africa. I was barely 19. I must have been mad. Packed up my bags and headed to Africa. I mean, if you think about that now, that's just insane. Traveled through Africa on the back of a truck with um 15 other people I'd never met. Got on a plane, flew to Sydney, which, is a fairly safe destination after
Yeah,
Africa.
yeah.
Traveled up the East Coast with I think I had £1,000 in my pocket, and I gave myself 10 days to get a job, and I achieved it. So I traveled up the East Coast on the Greyhound buses to Townsville and had started harassing travel agents of all people, begging
Fair
them
enough.
to find a job for me on an island. And two travel agents came back to me with an option, and I applied for both and got one, which was Orpheus Island, far north Queensland.
So always an adventurous spirit then.
I think so. I don't know where it comes from.
So are you going to sit still now you're retired, or are there travel plans on the horizon?
Yes, yes, there'll be more travel, more food destinations. I went and bought
Absolutely.
4 books yesterday on food destinations.
I love it. There's so much out there now. I mean, just going back a little, and this is, this podcast's not about me, it's about you today. But I actually joined P&O and spent some time on the cruise ships in the school office. So I was on the SS Uganda, where we traveled to normally seven destinations within 14 days. And that was in the early 80s, 83, 84. But an incredible time at sea. That was, you didn't sleep. Ballet was at 5:30 in the morning, and if you were on decks at night, it was, we did various things. We became part of the ship's show and the entertainment. We had about 300 cabin passengers, or as we used to call them, cabbages, who were, I mean, now probably I thought they were very old, but I think they were probably 60 plus. And I was like 19, I think, at the time.
Yes,
But we had a
can
lot of them.
understand that. Yes.
Yeah, we had a lot of them that actually lived on board. So they'd close down their properties in the UK and spend 3 months at sea because it was cheaper, and, everything, they were looked after. So that
What
was
a
a
great
really good
idea.
time.
Why don't
Yeah, it
more
was,
care homes do that?
well, exactly. Why not go to sea? Exactly.
Mm, new
Right, it
model.
was good fun. We spent a lot of time in the Mediterranean and up into the Black Sea, North Africa. Yeah, that was great. It was really good times.
So you had the adventurous spirit as well then, I see.
Yeah, just a bit. That's how I ended up in Australia, I guess. But that's for a whole other story. So looking back now, Sarah, what's something you were completely wrong about at 30?
I was completely wrong about. I know what it was, that your health will last forever. I was extremely fit, extremely strong, and in very good health. And then I
Um,
guess it was due to the workload and pushing myself too hard. Physically, I started to experience more pain. So this was back related.
okay.
And I now appreciate further on in life that I probably did more damage to my hands than I appreciated at the time as well. So that was one thing I think I would have given more attention to, my physical health.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. In the few hours that you had off between work.
Yes. Was literally sleep.
Well, our body needs that, doesn't it, to regenerate? And
Mm,
yeah, that's for sure. That's one thing you can't, that people really need to be aware of. That looking after your health and mental health and physical health, because when
mm.
you don't have that, you don't have
You
anything
don't
else. It
have
doesn't matter
anything.
what you're dreaming about. It doesn't matter what's happening. When you get cut short, then that's a really harsh lesson. So they say life's the best teacher, and sometimes the lessons come wrapped in disaster. So let's
Mm.
talk about the biggest curveballs that were ever thrown at you, whether it was
Now,
business.
now I'm going back a very long way. I'm 11 years old.
Okay.
And this isn't my story, it's really my parents' story. So I'll kind of skirt around the edges, but was a lot of issues within the home. Not generated necessarily by my parents, but I had a very volatile grandmother.
Oh, okay.
who yeah, and you don't imagine that that would be the scenario. My grandfather was relatively passive and he was extremely ill. And he was ill for about 5 years. And her volatility continued to increase over that 5-year period. So that went from the age of probably me being 6 to 11 years of age. And you can imagine that my parents were in that fight or flight mode for a large proportion of the time, and
Mm,
so were emotionally unavailable, because when you're in fight or flight, which I now know as an adult, you go back into your is it amygdala? Oh, I probably
yes,
said
yeah,
that wrong.
yeah,
Your primal brain.
yeah.
So you're less emotionally inept to see the feelings of the people around you. So by the time I reached 11, I was feeling extremely emotionally insecure, extremely, I guess, lonely,
Mm,
unseen, unheard. At that time, my sister was sick and she had a very different, she actually was very, very good for my dad. She was like the spark of light that
mm,
could break him out of where he was for small snippets of time.
yeah,
And then I would see him go back into where he was. So she had this gift. She would just look at him in a certain way and he would snap out of it and you'd see he'd radiate. It was beautiful,
yeah.
but then something would happen and he'd go back into the space he was in. We lost my grandfather and she basically erupted. And at that time, I also well, I don't know that I realized, but it came to light that I couldn't read. I couldn't even read Little Red Hen, which was the standard book you read at
Yeah,
about
yeah,
5.
yeah.
So I got dragged out of my normal classes and put into what was described as the dunces class. So I was left in this class of 5 students, yanked out of all my other classes, dumped into this class with the kids that, didn't perform, didn't do their work, were, irrational or misbehaving.
Mm,
But it saved me. The teacher, I have to say, whoever that teacher was, you saved me because I was on the edge on so many levels. And that brought me back from the edge and really transformed my life. So yes, that's the low point.
that's a
And
fairly defining moment,
believe
isn't
me,
it?
yeah, I've lost my dad, but the pain of that, I was an adult, I could cope with it. But at 11, that was a different thing. I didn't feel that I had people wrapped around me at
Yeah,
11. So that was quite different. So out of that, what I learned was that this person in here has a core, has a strength, has a resilience that I can't define, but there was something inside me that was strong. That's the one thing I picked up at such a young age.
and if you could go back and whisper advice to yourself at that moment, what would you say now?
That you're strong, you're incredibly resilient, that you just need to pick yourself up. And I did. Give yourself a big hug, and be there for yourself for the future going forward. And I have been, but don't get me wrong, my mother loves me, my father loved me, but it was very difficult in that frame of mind and frame of reference that they were in. And that continued for another 3 or 4 years for them to actually, be as present as they probably would have liked to have been. And I had
Yeah,
this conversation with my dad the year before he passed away, and it was a very emotional
I
conversation.
bet.
He was basically telling me how much he had loved me, but that's what he'd learned. He'd learned not to be able to express it. And I realize now that what it was, and I couldn't sleep last night thinking about this. There's a word for it now. It's called coercive control.
Mm,
She was so volatile that everybody around her was just on, like cats on hot bricks all the time. And
mm.
she towards the end of her life changed dramatically, and I did go and see her. But yeah, that's what changed my life. She and her actions is what created this fire.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's a good reframe, isn't it? So
Yes.
so how did that well, I guess you just answered that. How did that challenge change the way you approach success and actually approached your life going forward?
Yes. seemed to have an incredible amount of internal energy. When I left Crown, I have to admit that I was in burnout and there was a period of 6 months of recharge. But I understand when I'm hitting the wall. I know how to recharge. It's something I did as a child, actually. I would just leave the house and I would go for a walk in the fields and nobody would see me for hours. So when I need to recharge, it's nature, it's green space, it's light, it's fresh air, it's listening to birds and walking.
Beautiful.
Recharges me like nothing else. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's another thing I learned.
Yeah, and an important thing, isn't it? Sort of when a lot of people do the opposite. So when they're feeling burnt out, when they're feeling stressed, they tend to become inert and stop, kind of just shut down, go to bed, do whatever, sit in front of Netflix. But actually, to really take action and go out in nature, go out and walk, that it gives a completely different energy. It allows everything just to go
Well, I
away.
term it as defragging. It's like a computer. You have to just let it go.
It's it is, and that's such good advice to anyone listening who's, sort of a little bit younger than us. It's it's so important. Hold on to things, you waste that time, you waste that energy. Whereas when you
Mm,
can learn to de-stress, and that can become, whether it's meditate, and walking out in nature is a form of meditation. It's a form of
yes,
just allowing that central nervous system to really start to regulate. And it allows that
yes.
emotional intelligence to grow as well. Because when you can
Mm,
do that for yourself, you can, rather than that ripple effect from your grandmother, which sort of smashed through a home, you can let that really start to grow so that you don't affect everything that is around you, I
that's
guess.
around you.
So let's get to the heart of this episode. If you could give your 30-year-old self just three pieces of advice, what would they be?
Like most people, I was hungry for more career progression. I was hungry for more responsibility because I thought that came with the pay packet and the role and responsibility. But what I would say to my younger self is maybe give yourself time to grow into those roles.
Mm,
Seek out mentors, more mentors, at an earlier age. I didn't find mentors until I had small interactions with mentors, but I didn't know what a mentor was.
mm,
But I think finding mentors earlier, getting support and building a relationship with a mentor earlier would have been really, really helpful to understand your own emotional regulation, to understand how to interact with staff, to build points of reference on how to interact with different types of people,
mm,
have regular chats and discussions with my mentor, how I'm going, how I'm feeling,
mm,
building more humanity, growing and building a solid foundation with
mm,
the help of that relationship. And then seeking more responsibility in bigger roles and allowing myself to succeed in that way. Asking for critical feedback to understand what my faults were. And then, you know, a allow myself then to support my staff and allow them to know that they're seen and heard. Giving more affirmations because I probably was pretty bad at that because I don't think in my life I'd ever been given an
yeah,
affirmation,
yeah, yeah.
um, to build morale and build esteem and lift people up. And, work my way through challenges and understand how to navigate your way through your career in a more steady progression rather than rushing in as I did in my early 20s.
We're still very ego driven, I think, at that. It's not until we become reflective where and I love what we're doing on this podcast, because the benefit of hindsight is really paving the way to be able to help the younger people actually identify those challenges at an earlier time, and giving them a few life skills and a few tools to be able to navigate them and take those challenges on, but also just be aware of them. Because I think a lot of people maybe don't because they don't know, they're not aware, they don't understand the cycles that they're in.
Well, I certainly didn't at the time. I think, as you said, yes, reflection, hindsight, reflecting on what you've learned over a lifetime it's a beautiful thing. So I'm so pleased that we're having this conversation.
I'm loving it. Do you think, Sarah, that younger professionals now, do you think they're looking at the same struggles that we had, or do you think they're facing a completely different world now?
I think digitization is having a negative impact in the way of breaking human connection.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly important for young people to have those interactions with people outside of their work environment
Mm,
within the industry, because how do you know what's normal when you're locked into one kitchen's perspective, one kitchen's mindset? So if there is something that's not feeling right, that you don't feel is nurturing you and building you, who have you got to go and discuss those things with? I mean, you can go and find an online, Facebook page,
yeah.
but is that actually going to give you the tools? Because are they going to sit down with you on that Facebook page and have a deep and meaningful conversation? No. And get to the heart of what the issue is and be able to support you through a problem.
Mm,
That's where chefs associations come into the fore. That's what chefs associations have always done. Usually people move into chefs associations as they're starting their leadership journey or moving into their leadership journey.
mm,
And then when they go to the meetings or socialize or interact with chefs, if there
mm,
is an issue, they can kind of bring that thought forward and get another person's perspective. And I think that's really quite important. And that's kind of what's got lost inside some of these massive conglomerates of hotel groups and restaurant groups and
mm.
large corporate entities now that have become restaurants.
Yeah.
We've become isolationist.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I agree. And I think one of the and as an outsider, I mean, I deal with a lot of chefs across the world with Paramount, and there's a growing awareness within the kitchens. And I think because of a lot of the tragedies that have been seen in the
Mm,
chef world, that,
mm,
that actually you can't work those hours. You can't work at that level of intensity without it having an effect. The older chefs are still affected, but I am seeing there's a much better holistic approach to the young chefs and mentoring processes that are coming in through the system. I'm in Australia. I know a lot of the chefs here, and it really warms my heart to see the way that they do look after each other. And the younger generation, things through the Bocca store, those kind of programs. But
yes.
again, they're
Brilliant organisation.
Meritus, you've got to be good to do it and you've got to be in it. But there's also a lot of, I almost have to say, love around, what
Mm,
the older generation are bringing to those youngsters. And I mentioned it before on a podcast, but I actually first knew about the Bocca store when I'd actually just won an award in Singapore for the Asian Food Awards, and we took a vegan Penang curry, which we made in the UK, to the Asian Food Awards, and we won with it. And I'd actually told my MPD team that I wasn't comfortable taking a Penang curry to Singapore for the Asian Food Awards. And they said, no, 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 it's really brilliant. I said, anyway, we've already done it. So, okay, great. But as I came out of that that award ceremony, I bumped into this crazy group of kids in white chefs with a big kangaroo under one arm. And one of the girls that I actually stay in touch with now, Emma, who's over in Scotland. But it was just that whole energy, and it was a sliding door moment because I came out, it was like, yes, I was so excited. And they came out, they were so excited. And I said, who are you? What are you doing? And they said, we're the Australian Bocuse d'Or team, and we've just qualified for Germany. So we kind of danced a bit in the corridor and made a bit of a fuss and took some photographs, and it was great. And after that, I've sort of we sponsored shared tables, and then, yeah, have just really enjoyed that journey and just watching, how those youngsters are looked after in the industry. So I love that.
Yes. Well, I mean, with that in mind, I think we need to reach out to more. There
Mm,
are some that are reaching out, but we need to let young people know that there are people out there that are prepared to support them. Like you
definitely.
said, the Bacchus store, the ACF, Le Tourte Blanche,
Yeah,
the ITC that I'm with, the Australian Institute of Technical Chefs. There's organisations out there willing to support and nurture young people.
yeah,
And that's our primary focus,
yeah.
really. All of
I
these
love that. Well,
organisations.
we'll splash that all over social media from here, and
Thank you.
hope that gets out there. And I'm 100% behind that. I think it's I love the chef world. I've been involved in like MPD, and obviously my our business Paramount 21 has been going since 1988. So, we've had 37 years of, the relationships that I have in the food industry, and they're strong. And, my top positive connections are definitely within chefs in the Middle East and across Australia and the UK. So I feel very blessed to be in this sort of environment as well.
Me too. And
So
I don't regret one moment in this industry.
no, me neither.
The
I love it.
opportunities it's afforded me, the life that I've had,
Yeah,
I could not have wished for more.
no. It's an incredible industry.
It is.
So looking at that and with everything, what's the best advice, Sarah, that you've ever received, and who gave it to you?
I'll go back to 2 people. Tom Milligan,
Tom, good old Tom.
he can be a character in himself. It can be funny, it can be grouchy, it can be grumpy, but at the end of it all, he's a big teddy bear. I've known Tom since Crown. He's actually the one who said to me to join a chef's association. And it was the best advice I've ever been given. It's allowed me to um, build the networks, build friendships, find those mentors I needed. And, that's through 3 associations, and find like minded altruistic people, because you need that level of altruism
Mm,
to engage in a chef's association, because in most instances on the committee, it's a volunteer role. So you're giving your time and you're doing it because you care about the next generation.
sorry. No, absolutely. That and I love that. And it shines through in these organizations, definitely. So Sarah, we've covered the deep stuff. Now let's have a bit of fun. I'm going to hit you with some quick fire questions. Don't overthink. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. And I know yeah. So we're going to go. Are you ready? Okay. What's the worst business or life advice you ever got?
Because you don't, do you? You,
No,
you take it to bed, you mull it over. I'm the person who wakes up at 2 and 3 in the morning and I have to start writing notes. Yeah, not the best advice for
don't
me.
do that then. Don't do that. If you could have lunch with any historical figure, who would it be? Go on then.
All right, so it's 2 people. And I love this man very much. His name is Sir David Attenborough, and he has a special place right here, and will do for all of my life. I adore him. I've never met him, but I would so much love to have dinner with him. And Jane Goodall, both of them. We just lost Jane, as you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Both of them had a very profound effect on my relationship with nature. And as I explained to you before, it's my recharging place. So
yeah.
I've always had a deep understanding of the wider natural world
Mm,
growing up on a farm. So they kind of feed into that place in here.
I love
So we'd
that.
have some
I
very
love
deep
that.
and meaningful conversations.
Beautiful. And I'm sure we would. It'll be a very sad day when we lose Sir David Attenborough. Yeah. If your 30-year-old self had a theme song, what would it be?
The Only Way Is Up by Yaz.
I love it. Yeah, I agree with that one. I love that. And
Tongue in
what
cheek, of course.
Yeah, of course. And what's one thing you absolutely sucked at in your 30s, but you've mastered now?
I don't think I've mastered anything. I was thinking about this morning.
I don't agree with that. I don't believe that.
I really don't. Maybe I can express myself a lot better. Maybe I'm more emotionally attuned and aware than I was back then. But I don't think I've mastered anything.
What would you like to master? Let's change that. Is there one thing that you still would like to master, or are you fairly content with where you are in life?
I think I'm content with where I am in life. I surround myself with beautiful people who genuinely care about the hospitality industry. I've got a, exceptional husband who's always been so supportive. He's so kind and considerate. And I couldn't really wish for more in life. And every day you learn something, it's life is for learning,
Absolutely, absolutely.
continual
And
growth.
maybe that's the skill that you've mastered is continual growth. That's a pretty important one, isn't it? And one that, when you commit to that, then every day's a journey, every day's a new awakening, isn't it, of something that you
A
didn't
new
know at the
beginning.
beginning.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
I love that. Wow, Sarah Marrick, thank you so much. That was incredible. I know so many listeners are going to resonate with your story and your learnings. But before we wrap up, let's just do a quick recap. What's the single biggest takeaway you want people to remember from our conversation?
If you're struggling, if you're finding the place you are difficult, if the kitchen is not resonating with you, if you're starting to burn out, don't leave it too long. Take action. Reach out to a chef's association. There's plenty of us online. We're on LinkedIn. Reach out, have a conversation. If that means that someone needs to come and have a coffee with you, somebody
Hmm.
can come and have a coffee with you.
Yeah,
Um, if you're actually getting deeply into burnout, then you've got organisations and mental health organisations, but reflect on it yourself and start to think about how you need to take action. If you're burning out, then maybe that business with long days and busy services, maybe you need a break from that. And I did that a few times in my career, actually. After Crown, those intense 12, 16-hour days, did what a lot of chefs do. Monday to Friday, 7 to 3. I did that for a
yeah,
year. That was
yeah,
my recovery time. And then I went off and did something more intense again. So you've kind of got to have a bit of ebb and
mm,
flow. Give yourself time to recover.
yeah. And it's okay to do that, isn't it? There's no failure.
Absolutely.
It's
We
actually
don't all need to be
essential.
a superhero every
No,
day. We've got
no.
to look after our health.
I love that. And for everyone listening, here's my challenge to you. Take one thing from today's episode, whether it's looking after your health, whether it's finding a mentor, and apply it to your life this week. Take action on that. Do it this week. Maybe it's reaching out to someone who can mentor you, or maybe it's finally taking that leap that you've been scared of. Whatever it is, take action. If this episode inspired you, make sure to subscribe and leave a review and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a question or a topic you want me to cover in a future episode, please send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in to What I Wish I Knew at 30. And remember, your best chapters are always ahead. See you next time. Sarah Marrick, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you,
I've
Fran.
really
It's
enjoyed our chat.
been an absolute pleasure to spend an hour with you.
Thank you so much. And I look
Thank
forward to
you.
talking to you again very, very soon.
That would be lovely. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.